Where are we with renewables?
We are a lot farther than we were 10 years ago. Renewables are competitive in price, and they have proven to be reliable resources on our transmission system and are providing a significant amount of the energy that Northwesterners are using.
Okay, what's a significant amount?
We have a very unique situation here in the Northwest that we have a very robust hydro system that helps balance resources like wind and solar on our system in a way that other regions don't have the ability to manage. So we can balance wind and hydro on our system using our hydro system, and we need to start looking at the hydro system different ways, valuing it for its capacity value, and operating it in such a way that we can continue to integrate more renewables onto that system.
Okay. I'll ask you to explain all that in a moment, but so to the fundamental question of, with all these coal plants coming offline, will there be enough power? What do you think?
Yes, there will be enough power. There are a lot of smart people working on this issue right now. We see it as an opportunity. The importance is going to be to look at our region as a region. Right now, there are arbitrary boundaries between states, between utilities, between different balancing areas on where energy can be traded and generated. And we need to look at the system as a whole and identify where our most valuable resources are. For example, a very robust untapped resource of wind in Montana that we have having a hard time getting to load right now here in the Northwest. We have a very cheap solar resource in California that we can't access because of these arbitrary barriers. So if we're going to take the coal plants offline and replace them with energy, we also have to start looking at creating a market that allows us to do that in a way that is cost effective.
I think I read parts of the E3 or 3E study that was, the part that I remember was they had a graphic that showed like windmills all over Oregon and solar all over Washington, I think, basically trying to make the point that you could cover the state and there still wouldn't be enough alternative energy.
Yeah. And fundamentally, the E3 study did not assume that there was a market in place to value the resources where there are, value the diversity, the geographic diversity of the resources. So again, we need to be able to take advantage of the good wind in Montana and the cheap solar in California, but the E3 study didn't take that into consideration.
Okay.
It looked at the current situation, the current market opportunities that we have. Now, what we're talking about here is creating a resource adequacy standard on a regional basis. So right now, our understanding of our adequacy needs is done by utility. So if we look at a resource adequacy standard region-wide, we're going to know not just where we need capacity for each utility, but we're going to know based on the region, and that'll help us plan better for our capacity needs going forward. And I think that's one, that the E3 study was one step in that process, and now we need to do the analysis to take it to the regional level.
Okay, but if nothing changed, we'd be in trouble.
Yeah, we fundamentally believe that in order for us to decarbonize our grid effectively in terms of cost and in terms of reliability, we need to have market opportunities available to value the resources where they're the most effective and efficient.
Okay. Okay. So it sort of sounds like you agree with their study that you could cover the whole state and not have enough, but you're also saying, but why would you do that when we can just get it from these other places where it already exists?
You could do that, but that would be very expensive, and it would result in a lot of curtailed renewables, and it wouldn't solve the problem because we still would have the fundamental issue of not being able to replace the coal plants that are bringing coal into our system. We need to value the resources that we have in those regions where there are coal plants now. For example, in Montana, where Colstrip is, there's an untapped wind resource that could be used to replace the power that's coming off when Colstrip is closed.
Okay. And just to get it on the record, you support getting rid of these coal plants?
Absolutely support the closure of the coal plants on a schedule and with a plan that maintains the reliability of the system and doesn't make us jump too soon to replacing those resources with new fossil fuel generation.
Is that Natural gas.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing that we see is there's this push to electrify the cars, and they've got the data centers coming in,
Yep.
but then the governments and the people don't want a lot of natural gas plants built. How do you do that?
Yeah, I think that this conversation about what we're going to need going forward includes being very mindful about natural gas uses. There are opportunities to look at the existing combined cycle gas plants and convert them to something that's a little bit more dispatchable. That's a peaking plant. And there are opportunities to identify if we're going to need gas, where on a region-wide basis are we going to need it, not where on a utility by utility basis are we going to be needing it. Because there is also the financial risk of investing today in an energy generation plant that is going to be not going to be cost effective in 10 years, or is going to need to be shut down because of environmental regulations.
So don't build a gas plant now. You may regret it in the future.
Yeah, let's do the planning that we need to do now to determine exactly where the capacity needs are and be really mindful about how we meet those. Gas is not the only resource that provides capacity value. Hydro and renewables also provide those values.
So do you see a future in the Northwest with zero carbon?
Yes, absolutely. If we can't do it here in the Northwest with this clean hydro resource that we have, it's unlikely we will be able to do it anywhere in this country.
Yeah. All right, and then the final thing is, what about when you get the year 2000 sort of scenario where you have a big drought and hydro's not as good as it was?
Well, hopefully we will have done the planning up front to prepare for that, and that's where storage comes in. That's where batteries and pumped storage comes in. That's where demand response comes in. I think it's important that we start looking at our electrical system instead of generation following the load, is asking of our consumers to consider the load following the generation. So incentivizing people to be charging their electric vehicles at certain times of the day when we know we have adequate hydro flow and wind flow and solar capacity. But the days of the lights, the generation being there all the time, we need to rethink that.
Those days may be over?
I don't think they're going to be over, because I know that we're going to do the right thing in terms of investing in storage technologies to have that capacity to keep the lights on. But I think it is important that consumers take some responsibility in going forward in helping to keep the costs down by being a little bit more mindful about how they use electricity, and being open to cooperating with their utilities on setting a schedule for the most effective time of day to use that electricity.
So we might be encouraged to use our electric clothes dryer in the middle of the night.
Yeah,
as opposed
Portland
to
General
as soon as we
Electric
get home.
already has a program, the Peak Time Rebates program, where you can sign up and you're incentivized to not use your electricity when there is a peak time event occurring. And I encourage everyone to take a look at that, because I think it's a really good step in the right direction.
And then just two other kind of big picture questions. Do you think the general public has any idea kind of what's going on in the power world?
Yeah, I think energy and healthcare are two industries that people just have access to, but they really don't put a lot of thought into how they have access to it and what it takes to get it to them. I encourage people to participate in their legislative process around policies related to clean energy. We have an opportunity here in Oregon to bring the carbon bill back this year and consider doing the right thing in the short session. So I encourage people to be supportive of that process. I encourage people to start thinking a little bit about how they use electricity and being mindful about the time of day they do it. Consider programs like the Portland General Electric Peak Time Rebates. Consider choosing renewable energy as your supply. You have the ability to do that also as a Portland General customer. And being supportive of the advocates that are out there, making sure that the energy that we use as consumers is coming from clean resources.
Okay. And then finally, what I'm trying to say, it must be an exciting time to be a renewable advocate, because it feels like you're you're on the beginning of this huge wave.
Yes, we're definitely seeing a paradigm shift. I always say I cheated a little bit coming into this advocacy role when the cost of renewables was less than the cost of coal and natural gas. So that is a benefit. We have costs on our side right now. We have policy on our side. We passed a 100% clean energy legislation in Washington last session, and that had support of labor, it had the support of the utilities, and we're hoping to do similar things throughout the West, and we think we have the support to do that.
So it seems like it is coming. The question is, how do we get there?
Yeah, we need to be thoughtful about it, but we need to make sure we're asking the right questions. Like I said before, instead of asking what each utility needs for their particular balancing area, what do we need as a region so that we're not making unnecessary investments in fossil fuel generation for years to come?